my summer jobs, probably I think my favorite summer job, I worked at a summer camp in northern Michigan. As they say in Michigan, I was working with Michiganders. And it was a special camp for basically really artistically gifted kids that were good in music. A lot of them were prodigies. And probably, I think, the second or third day I was working at this camp, it was probably about 4:45 in the morning. I was sleeping in my cabin, and I heard this Beethoven being played on the piano. And I thought it was a dream. Where is this music coming from? And I realized that it was actually one of the campers, and he was practicing at 4:45 in the morning. That led me to a question. What drives a kid to do that? What is this magic Kool-Aid, as it were, that allows a prodigy to have this discipline to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and to wake everyone up? So the question I have, and the question I'm going to try to present through this research is, where does this come from and why is it important? Why is practice the differentiating factor between someone who's pretty good at piano and someone who can become world-class? Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome guests. We're going to cover 3 basic concepts. And these are mostly the ideas of a guy named Anders Ericsson who got his PhD and working at Florida State University. And he did a lot of research on people who did music, who did sports, and who did other high-level skilled tasks. And he found that it takes about 10,000 hours of serious, real practice. Not messing around practice, but something called deliberate practice. And when you do deliberate practice, you're challenging yourself. So if you were, for example, doing a math problem, you would do one that was a little bit more difficult than you can achieve. If you're playing piano, you're playing a piece, and you're playing an excerpt of the piece that you can't quite get through. That's the difference between deliberate practice and just kind of messing around. If you do 10,000 of those hours, you become a master under his theory. It takes about 10 years to do that. Now, we have these 2 numbers, and then we have the famous Andy Warhol number, which is everyone is famous for 15 minutes. And I would also make the point that American culture now kind of has a 15-minute theory, that you can become great in 15 minutes. So that's an overview. All right, so let's take out our handout here and go to the second page. There's a diagram here describing the 6 core parts of deliberate practice. And what are they? They're having the help of a coach, having the help of an expert, having the help of an expert piano teacher, an expert math teacher. The tasks that you do are repeated a lot. They're boring. No one wants to do them, but you have to do them every day to get better. They're mentally demanding. You're challenging yourself to get better. And you're getting feedback mostly from a coach or from an expert. Now, this coach part is really important. And I'll go back to some of the research I was doing, that there are very unique, very special coaches that have amazing track records at developing people with amazing skills, whether it's a piano player. I've talked about improv comedy. There's a famous comedy teacher in Del Close. There are a number of rare people who are really skilled in this loop, and they're worth seeking out. Let's go to this. 3 pages in, there's a graph. It says page 18 on the top. It's this graph right here. Just graph shows the research of Professor Erickson, and it basically shows, on the top part, the number of hours that it takes to practice, and then the relationship between the amount of practice and the achievement level of the musician in this case. And you can see at the top, there's a square, and the square, I believe there are like 11,000 hours of deliberate practice. And that was a huge finding, and that's been a very powerful influence, not only in the coaching world, but in general, when you think about training and how long it takes to get good. Okay, so I did more research on 3 examples of this in real life. The first example is there was a group of 3 girls in the Polgar sisters. And the Polgar sisters played chess. And they played chess at a world-class level, partly because their dad had a theory that geniuses are made, not born. And he applied this theory, this 10,000-hour theory, and all 3 of them became grandmasters. So that's the first example of research. And the second one is the sushi chef. Everyone loves sushi, right? Buy it at the grocery store. But we're not talking about grocery store sushi here. We're talking about the kind that's like art. And I have a quote here from the sushi chef that says the following. My boss says it takes 15 years of training before I'm ready to work on my own, so I've got a while to go yet. Think about that for a second. There's a sushi chef in Japan who's talking about all this, and he understands it. But in America, we're more about the 15-minute rule, I believe. Third example of research, and the one that is my personal favorite, is Second City Improv. And the number of students that came out of this particular training center is mind-blowing. John Belushi, Gil Radner, Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Shelley Long, James Belushi, Bonnie Hunt, Mike Myers, Chris Farley, Bob Odenkirk, Steve Carell, Stephen Colbert, Tina Fey, all came from one training center, one place, before they made it big on Saturday Night Live. And then they were also applying many of the same ideas here, particularly the deliberate practice, and they also had a genius level trainer who you can track them all back to one teacher. So that is an overview of the 10,000-hour rule. I hope you learned a couple of interesting things and are able to take a more long-term view of improving, which is what I'm doing here with this speech. This is Toastmasters.